Welcome to the panel on how to save Europe's leading economy. My name is Laura Fleischmann. I'm the German correspondent for Euronews, and today I have the honor to host this exciting panel. I will introduce our guests shortly, but first let's hear a keynote by Hans-Josef Fell. He is a former Green Party politician and one of the architects of Germany's first green energy revolution. He played a key role in the Renewable Energy Act, which came into effect in the year 2000, and his work demonstrates how legislative courage can spark industrial-scale transformation. The stage is yours, Mr. Fell.
Thank you, Ms. Fleischmann. It is a pleasure to speak with you today over how to save Europe's leading economy. I will say how to save Europe's economy, not only the leading economy. It is very dangerous because the European economy is highly dependent on fossil and nuclear resources. And this is a threat for the world. We all know at the moment how the challenges are. Fossil resources are war triggering. They are financing the wars in Russia, in Arabian regions. They are financing the autocrats now in US as well. They are bringing the humankind to the hothouse Earth, the most important problem for the humankind. And we see that dependencies on fossil resources leads to great threats. Look to Cuba at the moment. Though it has no chance, we cannot go on with this basic foreign industry. And this basic is traffic, combustion cars, lorries, airplanes, ships. It is energy producing, gas power stations, coal power stations, nuclear power stations, and oil refineries. We see it even in the chemistry system. All is based on gas and oil. So that's more. Even in medical, we have fossil resources. The new chance is to switch to clean energy and clean resources. That's a basic for the new industry in the world. With solar, with wind, with hydropower, geothermal, marine technologies, bioenergy, when it is sustainable growing. We look to storage systems like batteries. We look to electric cars, electric lorries, electric planes. We must look to biochemistry, the resources coming from plants instead from oil or from Algiers or from wood. We have so plenty new technologies, but the problem is China is leading the world with a new technology, not Europe. The half of the economic growth in China is new economy with clean technology. And they are growing very, very fast. Germany was a leading nation in 2010 with solar industry. But in Germany we had a legislation that declined the market for solar in Germany, and we lost completely the industry to China. What is to do? Draghi, the former EU commissioner, 2 years ago made a big report for the industry in Europe. We have to change to the clean economy, renewable based on energy and materials. It is not easy. I mentioned it already. China plays the leading role. We have to cooperate with China, not to confront it. We have to make joint ventures with Chinese companies to produce here. Then we have the factories, we have the income, we have the employment, and much more. It is an example how to accelerate friendships and free markets in the world. Not what is now mostly done with tariffs and others. And this is not only the necessity. We have to look to the basic, what the people can do. Education plays a very big role. Our system in universities, in school, must be renovated, that we have young people very well educated for all these tasks what are in front of us. So we have a lot to do, and we must do it very, very fast. Otherwise, the biggest threat what we see will destroy our humankind society, like UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres says, we are directly on the way to the climate hell. We have no other chance. We must convert our industry completely to a clean technology industry.
Thank you, Mr. Fell, for your keynote. As many of us can tell in our everyday lives and in our work lives, Europe's economy is under pressure. Growth is slow, stagnation is common, and in some countries, like in Germany, the economy is even contracting. The struggle is not only driven by structural growth challenges, but also by demographic change, by persistent inflation, and the energy crisis triggered by the Russian war on Ukraine. The big question is now, how can Europe's economy be saved? Today our panelists will tackle this question, and let me introduce them to you. On my left is Rushat Nanavati. He is the Managing Director of Third Derivative at RMI. He leads a global ecosystem designed to find, fund, and scale climate tech startups at record speed. Rushat identifies the technologies like green steel that Germany must invest in to reach economic stability again. Then we have Victoria Kerne Alexandratou, founder and CEO of the independent Greek power producer WRE Group, operating wind and solar parks. She brings the pragmatic private sector perspective on building the physical hardware of Germany's energy transition. Then we have Ulrich Weinberg, a pioneer of design thinking and former director of the HBI School of Design Thinking in Potsdam. He focuses on networked thinking and future reading skills, addressing the cultural and educational shifts required to revitalize the German industry. And then we have Mr. Fell, and we were supposed to have Wolfgang Gründinger as well. Maybe he will show up a little bit later, but let's start our panel. I would like to kick it off with a quick rapid fire round. In one sentence, each of you. What is, from your perspective, Europe's biggest blind spot in facing its current economic challenges?
Are we going to go in order?
Yeah, like this way. Unfortunately, you have to start.
Okay. I'm going to pick up on what Hans-Josef said. I think viewing China's dominance and leadership of clean energy technologies as an opportunity much more than a threat.
I will speak about the implementation. Implementation is a high complex reality with real consequences and with unreal costs.
Unreal costs?
Unreal. You never know what is the end.
Yeah. I think Europe has several challenges. I wouldn't call it problems. One of the most I see, it's not only Europe, is a systemic problem. We are still in mindsets of the past pre-digital century, and the leaders in our countries most of them are in a mindset of the pre-digital age, and that is causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I want to highlight all what you said. It is very important what Victoria said, to implement the new technologies has a lot of benefits, what most people do not see. In Germany, we have a big discussion how to bring cheap electricity to the industry. Our minister, Katharina Reiche, believes we should go to natural gas. No, natural gas made a very expensive industry and electricity price during the beginning of the Russian war. It raised the price. We cannot have cheap one. But I have another example. Some days ago, in a big town in Bavaria, Regensburg, a solar community made a treaty with 3 industry companies, Siemens and Schaeffler, very big ones, and Imovo, to bring cheap industry electricity to them. The cooperative people finance the solar park, and the solar electricity is so cheap that the companies get a cheap electricity price. It is only possible.
Mr. Fell,
with
only
the
one
switching
sentence.
up.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, it's okay. Interrupt me.
Okay, let's dive into our discussion. Mr. Weinberg, Ulrich, you are an expert on design thinking. If you could change 3 things tomorrow to restore Europe's competitiveness, what would it be?
3 things. I think one is we have to change the administration, and we have to redesign how we do administration on a large scale. As I said in my first sentence, most of the thought leaders of the guys who are driving the whole thing, they are stuck in a mindset of the past century. They are actually educated in a mindset of the past century, and this is not supporting us very well. So it doesn't make sense to just digitalize traditional bureaucratic structures. We have to redesign it, rethink it fundamentally in the digital age, because it's not about silos anymore. And we are still practicing too many silos in organizations, especially administration. It's way more about connecting ideas, connecting brains, connecting institutions, and we don't have the skills for that. We have to develop that. And the second thing is education. Yeah, human capacities. I think we have to redesign also the education system fundamentally. What we are doing right now is we are training young kids to be highly competitive. No way in the future to compete with machines as an individual. No way. So we have to redesign what we are doing with young kids in a way that they are actually that we are nurturing their human skills, not to be competitive with machines, no, to be collaborative with humans and to think about, get together different disciplines, different views, and learn about that, and not to be the highest, biggest competitor. And third, maybe, I have so many things here on my list. It's not it's too many things, but actually we have to, I think Europe has to realize that there is a fundamental change right now in technology. It is AI, and AI is not a new piece of software. AI is a fundamental change in how we can do things in the future, how we can be productive, how we can be collaborative, how we aggregate knowledge. And that is, on one hand, now very intensively used in the industry, and they're trying to enhance productivity, not thinking about what is happening to all those people, because you can enhance productivity. And it's not used correctly from my point of view in the education field. And we have to be aware that education switches from education to learning with AI. We used to have those institutions, the powerful institutions who were teaching, the big universities, Oxford and so on. And they are meant to be the educators. But now with AI, learning is in the hands of the learners. It's in the hands of every person, of every one of you. Every one of you, and especially the young ones amongst you, you can design your own learning path with your way of thinking. No problem with that. Right now, we could do that. And that is a change. We don't need that kind of big institutions in the traditional way anymore. We need to redesign those. It's not that we don't need universities. They have to fundamentally rethink what they are doing and offering. Yeah.
Alexandra, what do you think? What's mainly blocking reforms from happening? Is it politics, industry, society?
Victoria.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's a very challenging name. Okay. Tell me again, please, a story. A question.
So who's actually blocking reform? Is it politics, industry, society?
Sure. The power that is in hands of companies, traditional companies, and nobody who has the power want to give it away. Concerning the young people, we want to have young people, they can develop themselves, their personalities, and not to be hostages. How can we guarantee this if we are hostages of an energy system? Because if we're depending on a gas, like a resource is coming from another country, another person decide, and in a democracy, it is only one person in the end of the world decide if we are democratic, free or not. So this is things we should understand. The decentralization of the energy production is not only a matter of fashion, it's not a matter of politics, it is a matter of dignity, and even more, it's a national security, because it's something we control, we about our lives, and not somebody else in another country. So I think this is a key point. We should understand other countries, not the European ones, they have a central decision making. And another thing, they have a national plan for decades, like China. China can decide like this. I have an MBA, and in this MBA we learn you have to be small to decide quickly. China is huge and decide in one night. And we discuss, and we do not implement what we know and what we can do. And Europe is the country of the science, established in Greece, in Rome, and go on in Central Europe, and then to the other countries. So I think we should rethink the whole system for the fundament to up.
Ushad, we just heard about China from Victoria, and before also from Hans-Josef. China practices state-driven industrial policy. Do you think Europe is playing too fair to win in an unfair global game?
I think sometimes Europe gets in its own way, and I'm sort of referring now to the experiences of our founders. But maybe just to provide a quick piece of context. So I run a global climate technology accelerator, and it really focuses on founders and startups that are addressing the most difficult science and engineering challenges associated with the energy transition. So it's things like industrial heat, or in the context of the power system, long duration energy storage. And what Hans-Josef said is, obviously 100% true when it comes to the core mature technologies that are driving the transition. Wind, solar, batteries, electrolyzers. China has leadership, and it's going to be virtually impossible, I think, to catch up. But there's a whole set of technologies, about 30% of what we need to get to net zero is still pre-commercial, is at prototype or demonstration stage. And many of the most exciting innovations and startups addressing that residual, that really, really difficult 30% of the problem are right here in Europe, and specifically right here in Germany. And I think, if anything, as I mentioned earlier, playing with China and not against it could be tremendously advantageous. And I think that's where European policy could play a really, really interesting role. And I'll just give two examples, right? China, the US initially led with solar technology. Germany took it over, and now it's China and produces 97% of the world's solar cells. So clearly that situation is not going to change. But there is going to be a huge need and opportunity for, and the same is the case with batteries, but there's going to be a huge need and opportunity to deal with the waste associated with these industries and to use those waste streams as resources. Battery waste, for example, is growing at something like 30% a year. We're going to be producing 15 million tons of it a year by 2030. I think the most exciting battery recycling company in the world is a German company. It's a company called TuZero, based in Munich, which has developed this hydrometallurgical approach to extract these very high value minerals for it. Another great example, again, referring to this opportunity, is we know that we need to electrify industry, right? Just as we're electrifying our buildings, just as we're electrifying our vehicles. The only way you can do that is through really, really cheap electricity. The cheapest form of electricity is solar. That solar is produced by Chinese solar panels. But converting that electricity into heat is at really high temperatures is a really difficult challenge. And again, two of the world's leading companies, startups in this space, are German. A company called Kraftblock, which has a thermal battery solution. Another company called Hyperheat, which has a resistive heating solution. And I'll just give one more because AI obviously came up in conversation. We get excited about lots of AI applications. In the context of this energy and industrial application, the thing I'm most excited about is how quickly and how much AI, high throughput experimentation, is compressing the timeline for new materials discovery and development. Processes that used to take 10 years are now taking 10 months. And again, one of the most exciting AI for materials discovery companies in the world is not just European, not just German, but actually based right here in Berlin, called Dunya Innovations. So when I think about what Europe needs to do, from a policy front, it's do everything it can to ensure that it doesn't cede the leadership of these technologies to China or somewhere else the way we've ceded the leadership of solar, wind, batteries, etc.
So Hans-Josef, Victoria, and Rushad, you all seem to agree on needing cooperation with China, or working a little bit more like China. What do you think about this, Ulrich? Do you agree or do you disagree?
Fully agree. I'm actually personally involved in. I'm a visiting professor for more than 20 years in Beijing at the Communication University of China, and already I remember very, very well my first visit in China 22 years ago. Completely changed my mind because I was Western. I'm a German. I was grown up here. I was looking always to United States. We are the Western Union. And China was like, an underdeveloped country. They're all peace. All people are in gray suits and have a red star on their head and so. And I was coming to that country, and it was completely already 22 years ago. I was completely blown away. I was not expecting that, and I was immediately witnessing. We are here in a kind of Western-minded bubble, which you could call propaganda. This is the Western propaganda. The Eastern propaganda is different. And I wanted I wanted to build up on your ideas because you were pointing on the decision-making process, and this is something which I also witnessed. Especially right now, I'm the consultant for the Communication University of China, which is the largest media university in China. About 20,000 students, only media and communication, and they are very. End of 2024, I was sitting together with the president talking about AI. And he was saying, I'm completely sure in 5 years from now, our university will be completely different with AI because media will change. I think it was 2024. And I got involved to support them in that. And then I could see this decision-making processes compared to German universities. I'm a German professor for 30 years now. I'm retired, but I was witnessing that system. And they were just looking at what will be changed through AI in the near future. What kind of majors do we still need? And they were going, they have 21 departments, department by department, through the majors. And I was there for 2 weeks, 2025, in early 2025. And during that 10 days, they skipped at least 10 majors. They just were saying machines can do this already better, so we don't continue training people, young people. And the professors have to do something else. Imagine that in a German university. No way. You would have the Senate and there would be the faculties and all. They would start demonstrating. And that is something, you are pointing on something I think very interesting and very important. That's the differences between the political systems. That's not democracy in China, but all of a sudden we think, oh, that's very efficient how to do things. And that is not communism here in Europe. And probably all of us are sitting here, we are saying democracy is the greatest thing, that is actually the good thing. But the problem is we didn't redesign democracy in the right way. And this is, you are actually asking for something which Europe could be in the lead, kind of redesigning the idea of democracy in the 21st century. Do it properly, do it with high use of technology, of digital technology, get the minds together, get AI underlaying all of that, and do something which Andre Tang, the former digital minister from Taiwan, is propagating since a lot of time. I met her first 2021 during the pandemic. And she was talking about plurality. And she was talking about what Taiwan is doing in order to get the citizens in control, not just the democratic government, but actually the citizens. And it's so easy making use of apps, making use of applications, but you have to build it. As a government, you have to build that. And the European government is actually in call to do that. If it's not the Americans, for sure, it's the Europeans, how to do that. And cooperate with China, learn from them about decision processes in a different way. And that, what they are doing is not the pure communism.
Oh. Yeah, in some countries like China, the adoption of AI and deep tech is much faster than in Europe. Hans-Josef, what do you think? How can Europe bridge this widening productivity gap?
Yeah, we agree all. In the view to China and everything. Most important is that we look to the newest research results in technology and others. For example, IA centers. Today they are very intensive in electricity. They have a lot of heat waves and they bring the electricity consumption to a high rising. Even US cannot fulfill it because of two things. First is President Trump. He will cancel wind power and solar power and everything. That's a cheap energy. He is crazy. Sorry, I must tell it in this way. And the second is we could have, even in the technology of AI, new results. There are new chip productions for the computer technology without heat waste, very efficient. They need much less electricity. It is not yet ready for a computer or for a center or anything, but we could, in Europe, make a program for that, to bring new technologies to the AI centers and others. This is a chance. There are huge, plenty possibilities. I will give another example. When we look to climate protection, it is not only necessity to make zero emission with renewables and others. We have to take out huge amounts of carbon from the atmosphere. How to do it? We could do it with green photosynthetic materials. For example, algaes in the marine. They can grow very fast. They would be the new material basis for chemistry system, for medicine, for food, for building materials. We could create a very new material system based on carbon sinking technologies in the sea. I do not hear any in Europe any political view to such possibilities. And that's a problem of Europe. Because the leading ministers look to the old system to protect the fossil and nuclear system against the new ones with zero emission and with carbon sinking technologies. We have the chance. We could do it. China did not cover everything. We have the chance to bring more new technologies, and we must combine it, we repeat us, with new education, that the people can do it, that they can find the things.
There are already AI startups or AI companies in Europe. Do you think it's more, the productivity problem is more about the technology or more about the mindset that people aren't open to adopting AI?
So I think a couple of different thoughts on that question. There's no question that there are some countries that are just better in terms of integrating AI into workflows as essentially productivity enhancement tools, and China is, as we keep saying, the leader in that regard. So certainly that's one opportunity. But when I think about AI in the context of this, massive global energy transition, I think the big issue with it is that we're using it for really dumb stuff, and we could be using it for much more intelligent stuff. I cited an example of that, and I think when I think about the highest and best uses, the highest value uses of AI in the context of solving this climate crisis and advancing the energy transition, I think about materials, and I'll again maybe refer to a China example. This isn't a German company, but we use high density strong magnets in virtually every single piece of industrial or consumer equipment that we have, right? That's whether it's a PlayStation or an electric vehicle. These magnets are a critical industrial component. In order to produce these with the strength and density required, you need certain rare earth elements, which China controls something like 95% of the supply for. A company called Materials Nexus has developed a high-density strong magnet that is completely free of rare earth elements, and done it over the course of a year. And so that's one example. Biocatalysts are another. As a rule of thumb, this new materials discovery could take up to 20 years. And now you're seeing that compressed to a year. In a year's time, you'll probably see it compressed to 3 months. So when I think about, the highest and best use of AI, I think there's a huge opportunity here in Europe to focus on these cases that will, actually be world changing, as opposed to like putting costumes on cats, which is, I think, a lot of what that AI use and associated energy consumption is going towards. And then the other thing that I think is super exciting in the realm of AI is physical AI, what people refer to as physical AI, which is integrating the intelligence actually with robotics, and again being thoughtful about it, so that you're taking away the low value and most hazardous jobs as opposed to the highest value jobs. But those are the things that I where I think the greatest opportunity lies, versus what people I think tend to focus on, which is, are you using AI in your job to enhance your productivity?
Victoria, what do you think is preventing private capital from flowing into European green tech at scale at the moment? Is it regulation, bureaucracy, or is it insufficient returns?
It is also a political uncertainty that make also the banks hesitate to funding the companies. And this is a complex thing. This is the political uncertainty. The other thing is the time you need to get full license in your project. Another thing is the grid access. We want to have electrification. We want to have a new economy based in AI. What needs AI? Electricity. How's going to use AI without electricity? So you have to think one step after the others. And all these things together have set up a standard that the companies, especially the middle-sized companies, are very afraid to do things. And on the other side, also the banks, the financing sector, hesitate also to finance middle-sized companies in Europe, what is actually the startups, what is also the core of the business in Europe. And the young people that have no chance, I don't want to speak about women, they don't exist. I would like to say it was for some young girls, gender equality. The women has to be obedient, beautiful, and stand next to a man. Among the startups, it is 2% of women.
Hey.
So, back to the financing thing. We need a political agreement. We need to not to stop democracy, but we need a long-term national plan what we're going to do. And we cannot put our head in the sand. The world is changing. Who doesn't adapt dies. This is a philosophy. This is the status quo we have to accept. Me, I am in the wind business. The wind blows. I can put my head in the sand, I can build a wall, but I can build a wind park. And this is the best thing I can do, to use what is here. We cannot go against the physical phenomenon and believe we are okay because we're Europeans. And another thing I would like to mention, Ulrich gave me we have to stop with this arrogance, Europeans. It's over. We're not better anymore. We have to work with all the world together in order to be able to implement things. And I know what means the implementation. I started my company in 1997. I was the exotic. I came from the Mars and land somewhere. They were asking me, what are you doing? So 30 years, it's almost 30 years. What is important? To reorganize the administration, to secure the electrification in order to have AI. AI is another thing very important, is the transparency in the diligence. Yes. This is another thing against the corruption. If you have papers and you sign on papers, you can change it. If you have to do digital, this gives the companies, they are not the one or two concerns or a big oligarch. This gives a transparency. Currently, you cannot get grid access. So this is a main thing why companies, they cannot go on with their plan, what we have, the business plan.
Hans-Josef, what do you think about this?
The regulation in Europe is mostly protecting the old industries. We have highly subsidizing with tax money for oil, gas, coal, for nuclear. This leads even that the public budgets are overloaded, and we must fear that the French budget goes away where the Greece budget was some 10 years ago, nearly in bankruptcy. It is very dangerous, and they do not learn to switch it around exactly to the clean new technology. We have plenty of obstacles against clean technologies. And the reason is clear. Nuclear and fossil is a business of big concerns. Renewable energies, clean materials is a business for decentralized small and medium companies, for the people by themselves and others. It would be a democratic revolution to go to the clean technologies, because everyone can take part and earn money, and not only big concerns. For example, in Germany, the ownership of renewable energies is 80% by private people, farmers, cooperatives, not of the big utilities. And the big utilities fight for new gas power stations, for new nuclear power stations and others. They don't fight for renewable energies, and they protect the grid system to let not income new investment of renewable energies. So it is completely an obstacle against what we need. And when we open the regulations, one regulation on European level is very good to allow energy sharing between all energy producers and energy consumers. When you have a house with a big, wonderful photovoltaic system and your neighbor has a shadowed house, why cannot bringing an electric line direct from your house to the next house? It is not allowed in Germany. You cannot do it. But the European directive allows it. Austria had already did some things. So it would be a democratic revolution that the people can do it with the small and medium companies, with bigger companies as well, and others, technology, and share the energy. Austria had fulfilled this directive, and it runs. It is very good in Austria. So this shows, in this example, we must change the regulations very, very fast, because otherwise China will cover not only the half of the world clean technology, but the whole.
Ulrich, there's a big debate about wind parks in Germany, that they're not as pretty and that they shouldn't be built, especially in the south of Germany. What do you think about that?
I'm fully with you. We should make use of, with Victoria, we should make use of all the existing energy which is there for free. The solar energy is there. Wind energy is there. If there are waves, we can make use of waves. We should make use of that. And why not? So, but we should be careful because those are huge things. Solar cells I put on my roof. And yes, my neighbor can complain and say, you had a white roof before and now it's black. Usually it's not the case. Usually you had a black roof before and now it's black again. But with the wind, with the windmills, I see if you are living close by, you might be a little bit have a problem. But when I drive through Germany with a car or with the train, I see so many empty spaces. I have the feeling, okay, that's not a country where people are like this here. We have lots of spaces. We shouldn't probably build it too close to neighborhoods, but I'm fully positive that we should make use of all the energy which is there and recycle it and make electricity out of that.
And so transformation is of course good in theory, but it also has practical consequences, especially for workers, like in terms of AI. In Germany, there's also a big debate right now about working hours, part-time work, sick days being paid. How can we ensure that economic transformation strengthens social stability rather than undermining it? Or is some level of a social trade-off inevitable? Maybe like an open question.
Oh, I can give you an answer. The sickness is mostly because of air pollution. Air pollution is gas, oil, coal, and even nuclear. When we switch to clean technologies, the people lose the sickness. It is so easy. We have a report from the US lung doctors from 2019. Switch to electric cars and renewable energies, and you will save your budget in medical care in huge amounts. That's a solution in the discussion over sickness of the people, and not if they have to phone with the doctors or anything else was our Chancellor Merz proposed. We have the chance. We can do it. And when we look to China, I was 20 years ago in China, black sky, polluted air, loud combustion engines. Today, go to China.
It's over.
Open sky, no air pollution, no noise, trees, 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 flowers everywhere. It is wonderful. They did it. They cleaned the air, the environment, and they have business.
Rushad, let's get back a little bit to workers' rights. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I mean, there's disruption associated with any kind of transition, but the transition is happening. So you can choose to bury your head in the sand, or you can actually choose to focus on the opportunity. And I'll just put the opportunity into perspective. When you the world has to get to net zero. And if you think about the investment required in order to make that happen, it's basically around $100 trillion. And that number, like, I'm incapable of computing it. So I have to think about it in terms of comparisons. If you add up several of the biggest investment projects that we've undertaken in history, the Marshall Plan that helped rebuild Europe, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act after the global financial crisis of 2008, the Space Shuttle Program, the Interstate Highway Program, the Inflation Reduction Act from a couple of years ago, you get to $2 trillion. So a $100 trillion opportunity compared to $2 trillion just of worth of some of our biggest investment projects in history. Yes, of course, there's going to be disruption, but if you don't get ahead of it and don't choose to establish or retain leadership in the technology areas that you still can, then think about the size of the opportunity that you're missing out on. So I think it's important to obviously do the right things with respect to these disruptions and have a strong social safety net and help retrain and retrench workers. But I think it's also really, really important not to lose sight of the fact that the energy transition just represents the biggest economic and wealth creation opportunity in human history.
Ulrich, what do you think in terms of workers' rights? Do you think that we can maintain the standard we have right now, or maybe we have to lower our standards to compete with countries like China, where sick days, holidays, working hours aren't as strictly regulated as in Europe?
I basically think in Europe, especially in Germany, we are over-regulated. We tend to regulate everything. This is, for me, a fundamental problem of democracy, because a democratic country doesn't need regulation in everything. A democratic country leads self-organized people and self-driven and self-regulated people, but we are not training those. We are training dumb kids, and which are obeying to something, which are trained to obey, to listen to the teacher or to the professor. These times are over, and we need to rethink those. And the threat we are in right now, and the chances with AI are so incredibly large. It's really tough. It's really hard to predict what that will do to the workforce. I think we should really work on that. We should collaboratively think, and collaboratively also with AI, think of how to enhance those structures and how to get more responsibility in the hands of individuals. Because this is something, when I'm going to China, I don't have the feeling that they are only obeying to the leader. There is a lot of power in the hands of individuals, and also technology power. One last thing here. We are here in we are in Germany, in Berlin, the capital of the largest country in Europe. And this country is under-digitalized. This country is not the forefront of how to deal with digitalization and how to do things right in the future. It is not. And it should be. And I think this is really, I'm really ashamed for that. And if I look what you can do with digital tools in the hands of individuals, what we're discussing right now in Germany is like, with social networks off for kids, wrong discussion. How to get young kids, bring them in the chance, give them the capacities and the skills to handle carefully with that, and to know what is fake and what not. We don't have to obey to a larger organization to that. I think the intelligence of that. How many people do we have in Europe? 500 million. This, we need to encourage those people to make use of their intelligence.
Our panel is almost over. Just one more question for all of you. 5 years from now, will Europe, from your perspective, be economically stronger or weaker than today?
Can we start?
Yeah, we can start the other way now. Hans-Josef.
When today's regulations go on, Europe economy will be much weaker. We are on declining because of refusing clean technologies, new digitalization technologies as well, and new education systems, what we need for the people. But when we change it, and I know a lot of regulations to boost it, I did one in the year 2000. Then we could explode. We have still the basic, but in 10 years, I think it is too late.
Ulrich?
I think the challenge for Europe is actually the challenge is to redesign democracy, to redesign the idea of democracy in a way which is not only 21st century oriented, but actually future oriented, which drives a lot of countries who are now moving away from democracy to something where they're saying, wow, this sounds to be interesting, and this is economically successful, and people love it. So if we are capable of doing this, and Europe has the chance to do that, we are actually in good shape.
I agree with Joseph in terms of Europe. If continue the same path, will be much worse, and we will not. We keep astonishing, looking what the other countries do, like China. We have to understand that economy and ecology are terms, they're very tight connected with each other. You cannot have fossil fuels and expect that the economy will keep growing, because with a war like we have seen in Ukraine, what happened? Everything became very expensive, and the employees get the same salaries as before. Everything is much more expensive, and they get sick. Of course they get sick. There is a magic period, respect. We need to respect our people. The biggest asset of a company is that the workers, the team, our people. If comes Monday, they say, oh no, it's Monday again, and I need to go there. They cannot perform. We have to inspire our people in a company, and we have to respect them. And what I have experienced in 30 years of having my own company, very, very few people, they don't appreciate that. And I think we have to understand, if we have energy dependency, that we cannot control our economy, this is a domino effect in many, many things. So Europe has to redesign everything, actually, and to adapt with the status quo of today. We're not anymore the colonialist. This has to be understood and has to be implemented. And finally, we need to grow. We need to grow also as a personality, as souls. We cannot be this micro-hearted. We have to be different. We have to adapt with the new standards and to have a human-oriented society. That's my opinion.
And last but not least,
As I think the only non-European on this panel, I think I might be the most optimistic, actually. For a few reasons. One, I've spent a good chunk of my life living in Asia, a good chunk of my life living in the US, and I've chosen to live in Europe because I think this continent gets a lot of things profoundly right. It's not wealth creation and growth for the sake of wealth creation and growth. People in Europe, I think, generally know how to live better. And I agree that it doesn't need to be regulated. It doesn't need to be written into labor laws. But I think it's a wonderful thing that Europeans, actually know how to live a good life, to strike the right balance between things, and to retain at some level an appreciation for what you're driving economic progress and wealth creation for. That's one. Second, I think especially right now, Europe still carries like some moral force when you consider Trump, or you consider an autocratic leader like a Modi in India. You consider China's quasi, communist, capitalist, autocrat, whatever system you choose to describe it. But a lot of what drives policy in Europe are still like actual moral concerns, and I think that's hugely important. And third, this is a continent that still is very, very good at producing really cutting edge innovation and emergent technologies. And if it can get out of its own way, then I think there's a huge opportunity to harness that creativity and not, as I said earlier, just hand over leadership of it to other countries. So for all three of those reasons, I think, I hope I'm still here in 10 years. And I think, I hope that it's perhaps a really, really good news story.
It's great to finish this panel with a little bit of optimism. So thank you all for being here today and for your expertise. And also thank you to all of you stopping by and listening. And I hope that you all got a little bit smarter about how to save Europe's leading economy, perhaps. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.